In Virginia, a bank robbery explodes in violence.
Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
Spraying bullets from automatic weapons at anyone in their way. The robbers disappear. With no reliable witnesses, the police and the FBI have to decipher fragmented evidence to identify the shooters and then bring them to justice.
Despite what you see in the movies, most bank robbers come in quietly, pass a note, and slip away. They want cash, not bloodshed. But in Richmond, Virginia, a pair of gunmen entered a bank with their guns blazing. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The raw violence of the crime shocked even the most seasoned investigators, who vowed to catch them before they struck again.
Throughout the 1990s, Richmond, Virginia averaged about 10 bank robberies a year. Prior to 1997, not one of them was fatal. On the morning of January 30th, 1997, the employees of a small bank on the east end of the city began the day's business. "23-year-old Christine Edwards, one of the bank's tellers, arrived for work. Her colleague, 21-year-old Tracy Freeman, was already there. Allison Davis, a customer service representative, and Richard Hartman, the bank's security guard, also began their day. Stephen Reed, a regular customer, arrived shortly thereafter. He entered the bank as the tellers finished setting up and was greeted by Hartman.
Good morning. How may I help you, sir?
No one saw the two men slipping in the bank's rear door.
First National Bank, how may I help you? Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
When the men struck, they did so swiftly and without mercy. "80 yards away, Richmond police officers Michael Webb and Dave Martin were at a convenience store getting coffee for their morning shift.
Hey! Something's happening at the bank.
Where?
I heard gunshots at the bank.
The bank. About a block
bank
down?
right up the street.
Excuse me, back up.
As the officers responded, Richmond Dispatch ordered backup units to the scene.
16 respond. 929, 116.
At the rear of the bank, the officers spotted a security guard lying in the parking lot.
The bank, man down. Looked like he'd been shot.
We're going to the front now.
Officer Martin guarded the front as Webb went to check on the guard. He was still alive. Barely. Webb called for an ambulance.
EMP now.
Then, two armed men emerged from the bank.
Stop! 119-10-5 to 119W. Going all right.
Shots are being fired, units.
Webb emptied his clip. The officer knew he was pinned down and outgunned.
They stopped shooting, I stopped shooting, and I just knew these two guys were going to come each side of the vehicle after me. I changed magazines and sat there and waited for a couple of seconds.
But the gunman never came for him. Officer Martin left his position to back up Webb, but the assailant surprised him. With only a service weapon, Martin was outgunned, which allowed the robbers to get away from him. All the officer could do was report their position as they escaped across the cemetery.
Got a black male running with black jacket toward Divertown Road. 2 men.
The Richmond officer saw a cloud of red dye, the sign that the gunman had stolen a bundle of money containing a timed dye pack. The men leapt over the next wall, and the officer lost sight of them. The dispatcher forwarded the information to the Henrico County Police Department. Officer Martin searched the neighborhood, knowing 2 men with automatic weapons could be around any corner, but found no sign of the suspects.
.233 radio.
An Henrico patrolman arrived on the scene. EMTs arrived. They tended to the wounded guard outside. Richmond police entered the building.
Police, everybody down. Stay where you are.
Looking for any other gunman that might still be inside, and to check the condition of the other employees.
One teller down over here on the left.
They found 2 tellers, both shot.
It's okay. Come on out, man. Come on, everything's fine.
Allison Davis had taken cover.
Come on, come with me. You okay? Everything's okay.
She was not injured, but paralyzed with fear and taken to the hospital for evaluation. After clearing the bank, the officers felt it was safe to let the EMTs care for the wounded. For teller Christine Edwards, it was too late.
It's gone. Forensics responding. Today's SWAT and forensics responding are supervisors for crime scene control.
Okay. Tell me where it hurts.
Tracy Freeman, in severe shock and bleeding heavily, was stabilized and rushed to the hospital.
All right.
Along with Richard Hartman, the security guard. At the Richmond Police Homicide Division, Detective Tom Leonard was disturbed by the robbers' brutality.
This was our most violent bank robbery that we can remember in our history. So our fear was they were in the neighborhood and we needed to get them off the streets.
Leonard headed to the bank. Officers collected items dropped by the robbers when they fled, including a Lorson 380 semi-automatic handgun and the clip to a Tech 9, another semi-automatic weapon. A K-9 officer with a tracking dog began searching for the suspects. The dog followed a scent through the cemetery. On Art Avenue, the dog lost the trail. Henrico and Richmond police canvassed the neighborhood, asking the residents if they had seen any strange men fleeing the area.
Rita?
But no one saw anything suspicious. Detective Leonard arrived at the crime scene with an evidence technician.
We immediately shut down that bank, and the only people that were inside the bank was myself and forensic people. So as we went through the bank looking for forensic evidence that we could pick up and look at, we found a lot of spent shell casings, which were fired. We had some that were unfired.
Those shells were 9mm, likely used in the Tech 9. Behind the teller's counter, investigators found a backpack, apparently left by the robbers. Inside was a piece of green tablecloth, a bottle of charcoal lighter fluid, a box of matches, and a note reading, "Please wait 5 minutes."
We couldn't figure out what that was all about.
On the surface of the teller's counter, investigators spotted several boot prints. They preserved each print with tape, which they would later compare with footwear collected from potential suspects. Because the bank was federally insured, police called in FBI Special Agent Wayne Waddell from the Richmond field office.
Let's go ahead and see what we can get on this time.
At the bank, he and Detective Leonard checked a videotape that had recorded several surveillance cameras simultaneously. But there was a problem.
Oh man, Tom, look at that. We got a problem. Something caused the film, in our opinion, to not be working correctly. It went one camera to another camera to another camera, and you were getting different angles from the front door, the rear door, and from different teller positions.
They would need to make still photos from the individual frames to get any useful details. Special Agent Eduardo Alford joined the investigation. He knew the FBI would not stop until the gunmen were captured.
I'm sure if you talk to every person that was involved in this investigation, they would tell you the same thing. They wanted to stay on this case around the clock, which essentially is what happened.
Evidence collection at the bank lasted for hours.
Later on in the evening, at around 5:30 or 6, we received word that Henrico County had received a report of a break-in. I went over to the break-in site.
It was on Art Avenue, across from the cemetery, not far from where the K-9 unit had lost the trail of the suspects.
We didn't know if it had anything to do with the bank robbery or not. A young woman that lived there with her father found the front door had been knocked open and went in the house and discovered a lot of items that appeared knocked around or perhaps taken.
When Special Agent Waddell went inside, a Henrico officer pointed out a hole in the ceiling. It appeared someone had stepped through from above. They feared someone might be hiding in the attic. No one was there. They searched for evidence. Investigators found a pair of boots. They also found a backpack and a coat. Inside was another note reading, "Please wait 5 minutes." They also found another green tablecloth. Red dye, like that used in bank dye packs, covered many of the items.
So we absolutely felt that there was a connection between the house break-in and the bank robbery.
But they didn't know how the two crimes were related.
We had no idea why the bank robbers would come to that house. Was it an opportune moment? Did they know someone there? Was there something that drew them there? Was it happenstance? We had no idea. We interviewed the owner and his daughter and the daughter's boyfriend, And you interview these people because what are these bank robbers, what are these suspects doing in your house? And we're trying to find, is there a link or is there not a link? Diamond brown?
The residents were equally confused. They reported that whoever broke into the house stole some men's clothing, suits and jackets. During questioning, the boyfriend acted nervous and claimed he had no information to add.
About what time did you get here?
At the hospital, a Richmond detective sought out the wounded victims who could provide eyewitness accounts.
Yes, ma'am.
But he was unable to see anyone. The two wounded survivors were still in surgery and could not be interviewed. Allison Davis, the customer representative who had escaped injury under her desk, was so distraught she had to be heavily sedated. Stephen Reed, the customer inside the bank, had been grazed by a bullet and had come to the emergency room on his own. But he was also of no help. He had Alzheimer's disease and could not remember any useful information.
By the end of that first day, we still had nothing more than what we had to begin with. So we knew there was going to be a ways to go. It was going to be a tough case.
In Richmond, Virginia, two armed bank robbers escaped with $10,000 cash, leaving two employees wounded, and 23-year-old teller Christine Edwards dead. The community was stunned, as was Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
This girl was an angel. And these guys, they just walked into the bank without a word spoken and shot her dead. It's sick.
Determined to find her killers, Richmond homicide detective Tom Leonard and FBI Special Agent Wayne Waddell had to pursue the case without the benefit of eyewitness accounts.
The problem with the employees and the customer that were in the bank is they were all traumatized. We actually could not talk to any of them for several days.
The detective tried to interview Allison Davis, the customer representative who had taken cover under her desk and escaped injury. But she was too traumatized by the ordeal.
Yes, I'm Detective.
Hospital staff had to sedate her, and she was unable to speak.
30 seconds.
There were no witnesses available to tell investigators what actually happened inside the bank. All they had to understand those events was a flawed videotape of the surveillance cameras, according to Detective Tom Leonard.
That really caused us a problem trying to piece things together because we were missing little bits and pieces of the video, so you didn't get to see the whole robbery occur like you normally would.
Working with still photos captured from the surveillance video and records of the physical evidence recovered from the bank, the investigators pieced the crime together moment by moment. It was a complex series of events, all taking place in a matter of seconds.
You could see where the bank had obviously opened, but the only people who were inside were the security guard, the bank representatives, and one customer. The customer was standing there at the walkway area where you go through your little lines, talking to the security guard.
The lead gunman headed straight for the teller's counter.
The first guy bypassed the security guard without even looking at him, without even noticing him. In our minds, we realized the front guy was not worried about the security guard. He knew that the second guy was going to take him out.
In the photos, investigators saw the second robber pointing the Tech-9 at the guard. The first robber reached the counter and shot both tellers, killing one.
Crack that weapon, and he walks all the way down here.
Ballistics testing showed both were shot with the Lorsen 380 recovered outside the bank.
Going over the counter.
A bullet hole behind the customer representative's desk showed the gunman turned and fired at her, but the shot missed. Investigators noted the unfired 9mm rounds found on the floor. This suggested the Tech-9 had likely jammed, and the gunman ejected rounds trying to clear it.
I think when she was...
The photos revealed there was a brief standoff. While the second robber tried to clear his Tech-9, the first attempted to shoot the guard with a Lorsen. But that gun malfunctioned too. The Lorsen 380 recovered recovered outside the bank was found with a jammed cartridge. When the guns jammed, the customer, Stephen Reed, fled, followed by Richard Hartman, the guard. Unable to clear the Lorson, the lead gunman pulled an AR-15 assault rifle and followed them. Spent shell casings and bullet strikes found outside supported witness statements as to what had happened next in the bank's drive-thru. One witness saw a gunman chasing the fleeing customer. He grazed his arm. The guard tried his best to stop the killer, but was struck by multiple rounds. The gunman returned inside. Hartman was still alive. The witness watched as he entered the rear of the bank.
He pulls open that back door, the wooden door, right?
Investigators realized Hartman had risked his life trying to draw the robbers out. The robbers loaded a backpack with money, including one bundle that contained a dye pack. The guard approached, fired, but missed. Another witness saw the guard flee the rear of the bank. The lead gunman pursued him into the parking lot and fired. The final shot to the temple permanently blinded Richard Hartman. Moments later, officers Webb and Martin found him there. Agent Waddell and Detective Leonard now had a clear account of the crime. Since the robbers came into the bank shooting, investigators believed their intent was to murder everyone, to eliminate all witnesses at the bank. The contents of the robbers' backpack revealed a plan to minimize witnesses on the outside.
The tablecloths and the note were, I think, to be put over the doors to ward off anyone coming up to the bank. Give us 5 minutes, we're still cleaning. Give us 5 minutes, we're not ready to open up yet. Something like that.
With the bank to themselves, the robbers could take their time. The piece of evidence that disturbed investigators the most was the lighter fluid. They believed the robbers were planning to use it to set the bank on fire as they left. Investigators knew they were dealing with especially violent criminals who acted with no remorse.
We needed to get them off the streets. Our fear was these people were going to get out into the community and commit some more murders because they'd already been bold enough to come into the bank and start shooting people. And we'd have to gunfight with these people to try to catch them later.
And the criminals were well armed. They still had an AR-15, the civilian version of the military's assault rifle, and a Tech-9, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. The one weapon recovered, the murder weapon, was a Lorson 380 semi-automatic. A records check revealed it had been stolen weeks earlier. Investigators released details of the guns to the press and asked for the public's help in tracking down the weapons. It worked, according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
We got lucky. We got very lucky. There was a person who was out there that overheard a woman that she worked with say that she thought that her husband sold those weapons. The FBI and the Richmond PD followed up on that lead and in fact did locate a gentleman who was a legitimate and licensed gun dealer.
At first, the dealer was reluctant to talk to authorities. He didn't want to incriminate himself by admitting that he might have sold weapons used in a murder. After agents assured him he could not be held liable since the guns were sold legally, he admitted he had sold a Tech-9 and an AR-15 a few days before the robbery.
Yeah, I got it all right here.
He located the ATF forms filled out by the purchaser. Investigators now had a name to move on.
The gun dealer told us that he had sold the weapons to Jermaine Sims. And we got hold of all of the units, all the guys working the case. Everybody was out trying to locate him. They finally ascertained that Sims was out of town.
While the search for Sims continued, investigators kept following their only other promising lead, the Art Avenue house that the robbers had broken into.
We started checking everything we could find out about the owner and his family. The girl that lived there had a boyfriend. We started checking him out. So we started from scratch with just basically an investigation on every person in the house.
The boyfriend, who had acted nervous during interviews, consented to a polygraph test. The polygraph examiner asked questions about the robbery and murder, while Special Agent Waddell observed. After an hour of questioning, the polygraph results were inconclusive.
Did you rob that bank?
The boyfriend could not be eliminated as a suspect. Special Agent Waddell knew he needed to re-examine the house and went back with a search warrant. This time, he returned with an FBI evidence response team. He was determined that a more thorough search would reveal a connection between the bank robbery and the break-in. The ERT technicians scoured the attic.
Got 2 guns here, 2.
Behind a wallboard, they found a Tech-9 semi-automatic pistol and an AR-15 assault rifle, precisely the type of guns used in the crime. They were still loaded, and their serial numbers were intact. Special Agent Waddell proceeded to check if these were the same guns purchased by Jermaine Sims.
We wanted to verify that they were in fact the weapons that had been bought from the gun dealer and used in the bank robbery. So we called back to the office. We read off the serial number, make, and model of these weapons, and they were compared to the ATF firearms form.
They were the same weapons. A ballistics expert compared slugs recovered from the bank to slugs fired from the recovered AR-15. They matched, connecting that weapon to the fatal bank robbery. It seemed certain that Jermaine Sims had indeed bought the weapons used in the robbery and murder. Now, the FBI and Richmond police needed to find him. In Richmond, federal agents determined 2 weapons used in a deadly bank robbery were purchased by a man named Jermaine Sims. Agents could not find Sims, but a background check revealed he was receiving government assistance. They followed up on that lead. At the Social Services office, an administrator confirmed that Sims regularly came in to pick up food stamps. She flagged his name on their computers and agreed to page the FBI the next time the suspect showed up.
Afternoon, ma'am. This is Special Agent Dorsey.
Agents went to the address listed on the ATF form and spoke to Sims' mother. She hadn't seen her son since she kicked him out the previous week. Days later, Richmond agents received a page from the Social Services Agency. Sims was there.
Okay, whatever.
It's just a matter of pulling your check up. And
The administrator stalled Sims until the agents arrived. They hoped he didn't suspect anything. When the agents arrived, the suspect seemed calm.
Excuse me, sir. Special Agents FBI. I need you to come with me.
They asked Sims to come in for questioning. Reluctantly, he agreed.
Clear. Go ahead and thank her for me.
They took him to a nearby police station where investigators tried to get him to talk about the guns. But interviewing the suspect was no easy task, according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
Sims was a difficult person to deal with. He was a person who was filled with hate and hostility. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to certainly cooperate with us. We were dragging bits and bits of information out of him, and he was really only providing us information that we already knew. We were having a lot of trouble bringing him to the table, so to speak.
Sims denied any involvement in the crime, stating he was at his girlfriend's apartment at the time of the robbery.
Who lives there with him?
Over several hours, Altamari kept pressuring him until finally Sims admitted he had bought the AR-15 and the Tech-9 with the intent to sell them later for a profit. He said he stashed the weapons at a friend's house, a man named Ra, but claimed he couldn't remember the address.
That street called Main Street.
Instead, he gave directions.
Now, who else is this guy Ra?
The interview continued while Special Agent Wayne Waddell tried to confirm Sims' story.
Sims told us where this house was located and described the house to us. We went to the locations. We could not find the house.
Determined, Altamari confronted Sims with his deception.
Do you think you're dealing with a bunch of amateurs here?
But Sims maintained his story that he still knew nothing about the bank robbery.
You've already told me that.
By then, authorities had located Sims' girlfriend, who supported his alibi. But investigators had strong evidence connecting him to the crime.
You're going to jail for the rest of your life.
He was informed that he was under arrest for bank robbery.
There's nothing like the silence of a jail cell to focus somebody on their problem. And he had a huge problem. He had his name on the title to these weapons that were used in this robbery. And we thought that if we gave him a little time to think for himself, that he would eventually come to the conclusion that it was in his best interest to cooperate with us.
After a week of incarceration and repeated interviews, Sims decided to talk.
Now, tell me about the guns.
He said after he bought the guns, he left them with two friends, Rashid Jones and LaFawn Bobbitt. He still denied having any involvement in the robbery, but investigators continued to work on him.
He admitted that, that of course he knew that they had robbed the bank. He still claimed that he was surprised that they had used his guns to do it, and expressed his outrage that they would have done this to him and gotten him involved.
Sims said that after the robbery, Bobbitt and Jones came to his apartment wearing clothes he had never seen them in before. They told him about the botched robbery, the gunfight, and their escape. They explained that they had broken into the house on Art Avenue, choosing it at random. They stole some clothes and stashed their guns behind the wallboard in the attic. As they were leaving, Jones accidentally stepped through the ceiling. They then slipped out, avoiding the patrolling officers. They had the money with them, but it was stained red from the dye pack. Police records revealed that LaFawn Bobbitt had 11 prior convictions and was free on bond from charges related to grand theft auto. Rashid Jones had 7 prior convictions, including grand larceny, and was on parole. Investigators reduced the charge against Sims from bank robbery to conspiracy. Now, with the identity of the killers in hand, the real chase could begin. After a 1997 bank heist that left one teller dead, Richmond, Virginia authorities believed they had identified the gunmen as LaFawn Bobbitt and Rashid Jones. They had no idea where to look for Jones, but they did set up surveillance at Bobbitt's last known address.
Been in it for a while. Yeah.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Ken Melson was determined to apprehend these men as quickly as possible.
We had to get these 2 cold-blooded killers off the street as soon as we can, so we would eliminate the possibility that they could do the same thing again and someone else would get killed. And yet we had a lot of work to do collecting the physical evidence, getting it analyzed by the lab.
They needed more time to build the federal case, but could not afford to have 2 killers on the loose.
Prosecutor's office in Henrico County to charge Bobbitt with the burglary, the breaking and entering of the Art Avenue address. With respect to Jones, he was in violation of his parole, so we got a warrant for a parole violation.
Special Agent Wayne Waddell received the go-ahead to bring in the fugitives on those charges.
We had 2 agents watching LaFawn Bobbitt's house. The 2 agents were Paul Messing and Eddie Alford.
Call Waddell.
And we finally get authorization to arrest LaFawn Bobbitt. I get hold of Messing and Alford. They tell me that Bobbitt has just left his house.
All right, thank you.
The agent told the surveillance team to follow Bobbitt, then headed off to back them up. The agents followed the suspect into town, where he boarded a bus. They kept in contact with Special Agent Waddell, updating him on their location.
302, 304.
Soon, Waddell caught up. They decided to arrest Bobbitt at the next bus stop.
Bus is right in front of me.
All right, 10-4, I'm getting ready to come around you right now.
Waddell pulled around front to get into position. The other agents pulled in behind. When the bus stopped, the agents were ready.
Come on, Bob, if you're under arrest for parole violation, put your hands up.
Within moments, suspect LaFawn Bobbitt was in custody. Investigators executed a search warrant on Bobbitt's home. In his bedroom, they discovered a manual for a .380 Lorsen pistol, the same model used in the murder. They also found several spent .380 shells. For FBI Special Agent Eduardo Alford, this circumstantial evidence suggested it was Bobbitt who fired the fatal shot.
It was actually the weapon that one of the tellers was killed with. Finding that shell casing was very helpful as far as determining which one of the subjects or suspects might have had possession of this weapon on this particular day.
The FBI lab identified Bobbitt's fingerprints on items left at the bank by the robbers. The first evidence directly linking him to the crime. Technicians at the FBI's Question Documents Unit compared the boot impressions found at the bank with boots recovered from the Art Avenue house and from Bobbitt's home.
One of the latent footwear impressions was consistent with a boot that was left at the Art Avenue address. Another latent was found to be consistent with a boot found at Bobbitt's house at a later search. And so that circumstantially, again, not conclusively, but circumstantially placed Bobbitt and his apparel in that bank.
The boots found in the attic likely belonged to Bobbitt's alleged partner in the crime, Rashid Jones. Federal prosecutors now charged LaFawn Bobbitt with the bank robbery and murder, but investigators still needed to find Rashid Jones. 3 months after the crime, authorities received a tip from a store clerk. He reported a customer had attempted to pay with dye-stained bills. The clerk refused to accept them.
Mr. Jones had been in that particular area in the south end of Richmond trying to exchange some of this money. So the Fugitive Task Force pieced that information together, and they were really able to hone in on that particular area based on the proximity of this particular merchant's store.
The FBI focused on that neighborhood, working all of their contacts. The effort paid off.
The information that came in was from just a reliable source of information. Somebody that was aware of this crime and knew Mr. Jones and was able to pinpoint a location of where he was hiding.
Jones was staying in a run-down apartment building frequented by transients. Agents were able to obtain the cooperation of a man living there. The arrest was planned for 5 a.m. when Jones would likely be asleep. They called the location and spoke to their contact inside. He said Jones was there, sleeping, and he had a gun. The contact also warned there were other people in the apartment, and most of the lights did not work. As the arrest team approached the building, they went through a final briefing, reviewing photos of their target. They anticipated a dangerous confrontation. Jones was armed, desperate, and surrounded by innocent bystanders. In 1997, the Richmond Fugitive Task Force SWAT unit closed in on Rashid Jones, suspected of bank robbery and murder. They'd received a tip that Jones was hiding out in an apartment. From their contact inside, they learned Jones was armed and most of the lights did not work. There were several innocent people in the apartment. The building was dark and foreign, complicating an already difficult challenge in which SWAT had to take down an armed fugitive while protecting innocent bystanders. The team decided to sneak up on Jones silently. They hoped he had not been tipped off. When they reached the target apartment, an agent phoned their contact inside.
FBI, we're here.
The contact was escorted out of the building. When they made it to the room where Jones was said to be sleeping, he was gone. So was his gun. Tension mounted as SWAT began searching the rest of the apartment.
Get your hands up, man. Get your hands up. Come on, get up. Get up.
They found and removed 2 other residents. Every room was cleared, except one, a bathroom.
Jones, we know you're in there. Come out. Put your hands up, Jones. That's him. Let's go.
To the team's relief, Jones was unarmed and surrendered without a fight. The manhunt was over.
Get on, sit up.
Agents searched for his weapon. They discovered it in a closet, its firing pin broken. Had the gun been functional, the arrest might not have gone so smoothly. Jones was immediately charged with probation violation and later for the bank robbery. On February 25, 1998, the trial of Rashid Jones and LaFawn Bobbitt began. But it would not be an easy case. Assistant U.S. Attorney Ken Melson and his prosecution team were unable to use any of the people in the bank as witnesses.
None of them could really testify for us because the guard was blind as a result of being wounded. One teller was dead. Another one had never had the opportunity to even turn around to see anything. And a third employee was unable to testify because she didn't see anything. She was under a desk during most of the robbery.
Melson found a way to deal with the lack of witnesses by commissioning a digital recreation of the crime.
We had to stand in for them digitally and show the jury what happened inside that bank. We were the witnesses' voice to the jury during the trial so that they could be involved and experience the agony of the victims, experience the moment of the bank robbery. And that would give them not only the true feeling of what went on in the bank, but the true carnage and intent of the defendants.
After hearing 6 days of testimony, the jury convicted both gunmen on all charges. Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
In the trial, they sat there smug as all get out. And it wasn't until after they were convicted that you could really see them start to worry, because then it was about them. Then they were worried.
Bobbitt and Jones were each sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jermaine Sims, who purchased 2 of the weapons used in the robbery, was convicted on conspiracy, accessory before the fact of murder, and several weapons violations. He, too, was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. As the victims and their families continue to heal, they and the city of Richmond know that Jones, Bobbitt, and Sims will never be a threat to anyone again. In southern Louisiana, a vicious killer is on the loose, slaughtering his victims in their own homes. The body count rises. Authorities struggle in their search for evidence. They resort to behavioral analysis, hoping to recognize a pattern that will help them identify a sadistic murderer.
Louisiana, a brutal killer turned a rural area into his personal hunting ground. He preyed on the defenseless, the weak, and the elderly. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The killer would lie in wait, often striking while his victims slept. No one was safe, even in their own homes. Working with police, FBI profilers helped to identify a madman, to catch him before he could strike again.
Laplace, Louisiana, May 9th, 1997. At 9:46 a.m., James Lowell, Jr., a deputy with the St. John's Parish Sheriff's Department, stops by his parents' home. Lowell's sister had called him at work, concerned why their parents aren't answering their phone. The deputy discovers the front door is ajar.
Mom? Mom?
He finds his father, James Lowell Sr., on the floor.
Dad? Mom?
His face is covered with blood.
Dad? Mom?
He checks his father's pulse
Dad?
and finds none.
Mom? Mom?
He looks for his mother. He finds her in the kitchen, brutally assaulted. Anne-Marie Lowell is unconscious and her pulse is faint, but she's alive.
Dispatch is low. Dispatch is low.
The deputy calls for an ambulance and backup.
My dad's dead. My mom's scared. We both. Send back her, please.
Within minutes, officers, detectives, and EMTs respond to the scene. The brutal attack shocks Detective Todd Himmel of the St. John Sheriff's Department.
This is a well-respected family in the community, well-known, good people. Most of our homicides are either drug-related or maybe an argument that escalated. To have a home invasion homicide is uncommon for this area. When I first made entry into the house, my first reaction was very gruesome. A tremendous amount of blood on the floor and the walls. The injuries to the victims were quite gruesome.
EMTs work to stabilize Mrs. Lowell for the short trip to River Parish Hospital. Later that day, she dies from her injuries. Deputy Lowell tells investigators how he found his parents. He points out a pair of eyeglasses on the kitchen floor that belonged to his father. Investigators find a blood-stained hammer near Mr. Lowell's body. The nature of the wounds to the victim's head and face lead investigators to believe this is the weapon that killed him. The detectives search the house.
When I made entry into the den area and observed the female's glasses laying on the floor with some blood, it was obvious that she was struck in that area.
Investigators find a large sugarcane knife, sometimes called a side blade or sling blade.
It's covered in blood. It was obvious that it was a weapon that inflicted the injuries on the female victim.
Detectives noticed that several volumes of an encyclopedia have been thrown to the floor.
Blood spots. I'm finished over there. Okay. Ooh, did you see that?
Got money. That's $100 bill right there.
Checking the books still on the shelf, they find the Lowells had hidden nearly $12,000 there.
Let's just pile them up here.
Family members later confirmed the total. The intruder did not find any of the money. Investigators theorized the killer's search was interrupted.
He was very close to finding the money. Apparently he was scared before he was able to. The son coming home to check on his parents may have scared him off.
Crime scene technicians dust nearly every exposed surface in the house, but the only fingerprints they find match the victims or close family members.
Hey, Tony, come here. Did you get a couple of pictures of this?
Investigators search the exterior of the house. They discover the phone line, as well as the wires to the alarm, have been cut. And one of the garage windows has been removed.
Way with the determined point of entry, which is the side window. Apparently the suspect had enough time to actually take a knife and remove the putty from a pane of glass from the old wooden windows.
Detective Himmel suspects the killer took his time breaking into the Lowells' home.
The particular location that he had made entry into was camouflaged by a fence and some trees, so in essence, no one would have seen him if they were passing on the road, so he did have time to make entry and to actually whittle away the putty from that window pane before he made entry into the residence.
Investigators spread out to interview the Lowells' neighbors. Although Laplace is a tight-knit community, nobody has noticed anything unusual. Detectives run background checks on everyone who has recently come in contact with the family. They discover that a handyman hired by the Lowells is an ex-convict. He spent 5 years in prison for manslaughter.
We began an investigation looking into his background. From that point, we kept him under constant surveillance.
3 days later, police bring the handyman in for questioning. He claims he is innocent, but a polygraph exam suggests he is being deceptive.
Anything?
Detectives obtain a warrant to search the suspect's home for clues. Crime technicians use luminol and black lights to hunt for blood evidence. Investigators theorize that the ex-con could have murdered the Lowells and quickly returned to his home. Once there, he inevitably would have deposited small amounts of blood. But their efforts turn up no evidence. Although detectives are unable to connect the suspect to the murders, they continue to keep him under surveillance. 5 days later, Detective Himmel arrives at the scene of a second brutal homicide. Another prominent member of the community has been murdered. Officers responding to a missing persons call discovered the body of 58-year-old Joyce Gilmer in the backyard of her home. According to her family, her car is missing. The victim has 4 bloody lacerations to the back of the head. Detective Himmel immediately suspects that this murder is related to the double homicide.
There were several similarities between the two. Namely, both victims were well known throughout the community, elderly. They either owned or had owned their own business at one point. The weapon of choice was a sharp-edged object.
Investigators now realize they can rule out the possibility that the ex-con is the killer.
He was under constant surveillance at the time that this crime had occurred, so we could eliminate him as being a suspect because we felt strongly that both crimes were related.
Detective Himmel walks through the house looking for signs of an intruder. He finds none until he gets to the master bedroom. It appears as if the killer knew exactly what he wanted. The victim's family reported a safe is missing.
The only room that was disturbed was the master bedroom closet where the safe was located, which indicated to us that the perpetrator knew exactly where to go and knew exactly what he was looking for when he went into the residence. And having knowledge of that, the safe existed inside that master bedroom, it's a good possibility he knew the victim, that it could be one reason that he did murder her is because she knew who he was and could identify him.
The investigators find no evidence of blood inside the house. They conclude that the victim was likely forced into the backyard, where she was murdered. Crime scene investigators process the house for evidence, including hair, fiber, and fingerprints. The killer has been careful. Once again, he has left nothing behind. Later that day, investigators find Mrs. Gilmer's car in the parking lot of a hotel just a few miles from her home. Deputies tow the vehicle to the sheriff's impound lot for analysis.
When the car was found, the keys were still in it, so it was obvious that he had used that area just to dump the vehicle and had gotten into another vehicle, which was either parked there previously or he was picked up by someone.
Crime technicians collect several fingerprints, but they only match the victim and members of the victim's family. For Detective Himmel, the car is another dead end.
We didn't have any physical evidence that could determine who the perpetrator was or even assist us in determining who the perpetrator was.
Investigators review videotapes taken by the hotel's security cameras. Unfortunately, the cameras were not focused on the area where the stolen vehicle was abandoned.
It was a very stressful, very tense moment, trying to determine who's responsible for these crimes, working 20 hours a day, getting 4 hours of sleep a night. It was quite stressful.
With limited resources and almost no evidence to go on, the St. John Sheriff's Department calls the New Orleans field office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Detectives hope FBI profilers can help identify a vicious killer. Special Agent Dan Funk travels to the scenes of both homicides, starting with the Lowell murders. Investigators are still processing the home 2 weeks after the slayings.
Part of my job, being at the field, at the scene, is to provide all the information that the profiling unit at Quantico needs to do their work. They're not at the scene. I'm the local eyes and ears for that unit. What I do is go to the crime scene, try to absorb as much information as I can, and then provide it back to Quantico.
Agent Funk tries to determine step by step what happened the day of the murder.
I'm looking for pre-offense behavior, offense behavior, and post-offense behavior, which basically means what the subject and the victims did prior to the crime, during the crime, and then after the crime.
Small clues help the agent establish a timeline.
It appeared that the subject spent maybe the whole night in the garage waiting for the victims to wake up. We noticed that because the newspaper was picked up in the morning, and it was the victim's routine to immediately pick up the paper upon rising. And then it looked like there was coffee grounds in the garbage to indicate that they made coffee and were settling down for their morning routine before the attack occurred.
There's one that belongs in the garage.
According to the family, the murder weapon, a cane knife or sling blade, was kept in the garage with other tools. The killer had literally hacked Mrs. Lowell to death with a 40-inch blade that he found in her own garage.
You could see blood on the floor, blood splattered on the walls. You proceeded through the house, and wherever you looked, there was blood. You could just see marks on the walls and on door jambs where you could picture that the subject just swinging this wildly at the victim.
What are you doing? Leave me alone! Leave me alone,
This was probably the worst crime scene that I've ever seen. And it spread throughout the house, which indicated that there was just an ongoing confrontation between the victims and the subject that just went on and on.
With the discovery of Mrs. Lowell's eyeglasses in the den, investigators believe that was where the killer first encountered his victim. Since her body was located in the kitchen, investigators speculate she was chased there by the intruder. The discovery of Mr. Lowell's eyeglasses on the kitchen floor suggests a possible scenario.
To have Mr. Lowell's glasses in the kitchen, we believe that's the initial point of contact between him and the perpetrator.
Investigators theorize that Mr. Lowell entered the kitchen attempting to defend his wife, but they note his body was found in the hallway.
We believe he was either trying to get another weapon or trying to get to a phone that was in the hallway.
After viewing both the Lowell and Gilmer crime scenes, Agent Funk is confident he has enough information to take to Quantico.
We definitely believe that this was a case that the profiling unit could assist on. There was a lot of interaction between the victim and the subject, and there were a lot of activity that could be used to come up with an offender profile.
But could FBI profilers help identify the killer before he strikes again? In Louisiana, a killer has murdered 3 prominent citizens in a small town. He strikes with extreme violence, but leaves few clues.
Away from our victims.
At FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, Special Agent Dan Funk and local investigators brief FBI profilers on the murders.
For you to my partner, he's got the newest case that we're working.
The expert observes that the Lowell crime scene reflects a mixed behavior.
So it's a good two-handed weapon, very sharp. It's not worth anything.
The subject was organized in the burglaries, disorganized in the murders. The subject brought tools with him to disable alarms and phone lines and to enter the residence, but he was disorganized once he entered it. He didn't bring a weapon with him, but he found weapons of opportunity located at the scene.
Profilers also note that careful planning gave way to extreme violence when the intruder confronted his victims. The brutality of the murders suggests a chaotic personality.
We've got some good stuff here, some good solid police.
But the profiler tells St. John's investigators that he will not be able to create a profile powerful enough based on only 2 incidents.
Solid profile.
They need more data.
You can't just sit around and wait.
What I am going to suggest is
the profiler's advice to the investigators is to go back and search through their cold case files to look for similar unsolved murders in nearby jurisdictions.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Investigators from St. John's Sheriff's Department meet with detectives from nearby parishes. The detectives share the details of their cold case files and make a chilling discovery. They find that over the last year, 3 unsolved homicides bear striking similarities to the Lowell and Gilmer murders. Records show that 8 months earlier, in nearby Ascension Parish, the owner of an auto repair shop was beaten to death with an aluminum baseball bat. A substantial amount of money was stolen from the victim's home.
He's in his late 50s. He owns an auto repair shop in my district. It happened about a year before your double murder.
5 months later, in St. James Parish, a 58-year-old woman was stabbed and beaten to death in her home. Police found a bloody knife in the sink. They were unable to recover any fingerprints from the weapon or at the scene.
Photos. They had a 58-year-old woman.
Less than 3 weeks later, also in Ascension Parish, a 71-year-old woman was beaten and stabbed to death in her bedroom. The victim was stabbed multiple times and bludgeoned with a trophy. Detectives found an open safe in a bedroom closet. The contents, value unknown, had been removed.
What was strange was she was found under an overturned couch.
Phone lines and alarm wires to the residence had been cut. Investigators conclude that as many as 6 homicides may have been committed by the same killer. But before the task force can ask the FBI to review the new data and create a more detailed profile, there is another attack. Shortly after 4 o'clock in the morning, on July 7th, 1997, detectives from the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Department arrive at the home of Vincent and Julie Rowland. A uniformed officer briefs Sergeant Detective Mike Toney.
The sheriff's office responded to the 911 call that we received. After the sheriff's office patrol division arrived at the residence, they learned that there was a home invasion. It was a brutal attack. It was a vicious attack upon 2 elderly people of the community.
Detective Toney learns the couple sustained severe lacerations and gunshot wounds. Miraculously, they are both alive. The next day, Toney visits the hospital and learns that both victims have been stabilized. A doctor tells investigators that dozens of .410 gauge shotgun pellets were removed from the face, neck, and chest areas of both victims. If the Rowlands had been struck by larger gauge ammunition, they might not have survived. Among his injuries, Mr. Rowland has a large knife wound and shotgun blast to his face.
It was remarkable that he was able to talk and give us information. He was determined to give this information because he wanted his attacker caught. And he gave a wealth of information as to how the attack took place.
The man tells investigators he and his wife were in bed, asleep.
It was around 2 or so in the morning. He was awakened when this large 30-pound rock was thrown upon his face. As he rises up out of the bed, the attacker starts hitting him in the facial area with the side blade. He tries to defend himself from the attack.
The man struck him with the sling blade over and over again. Mr. Rowland said he was ordered to open a safe that was in the bedroom closet. He told the man he couldn't open the safe because he was hurt too badly. He and his wife were forced into the bathroom.
The combination of the safe.
To buy time, he intentionally gave his attacker the wrong combination.
36, 4, 34. Wrong answer. That's not the combination.
He ordered Mrs. Rowland to open the safe or he would kill them both.
Go! Open the safe. Let's go, you're taking forever. Open it up. Back up.
The safe contained over $100,000 in cash. After cleaning out the safe,
Stay there. I'll kill you.
the intruder moved to the opposite side of the house.
No, it's all right. Stay here.
Mr. Rowland could see him through the bathroom window.
All right. Stay there.
Don't go.
No. Stay here. I'll take care of this.
He left the bathroom and went for the chest in the bedroom closet where he kept 2 guns. He hid behind the sofa and waited. He had taken the wrong revolver.
No.
The one he kept loaded was still in the closet. The intruder had found a shotgun in a gun cabinet.
No.
Mr. Rowland was hit in the face.
He laid there pretending to be dead, at which time he heard someone walk up to him, which he didn't realize it was his wife. He hears a second shot goes off, and then he realizes his wife had just been shot.
Mrs. Rowland tells investigators that she laid still until the intruder left. She then tried to call 911, but the phone line had been cut. Terrified and bleeding, she managed to drive to her son's house, where he called the police. Ascension Parish detectives share details of the Rowland statements with investigators. They are confident the attack is connected to the homicides they are investigating.
They were linked due to the type of home invasion it was. The perpetrator entered the residence through a window. Prior to opening the window, he had cut the phone wires to the residence, which would disable the alarm system. And then after entering the residence, seeking a weapon of opportunity, and then attacking the victims while they were in the house.
The detectives also note similarities in the killer's victims.
They were all elderly and owned businesses, and they were wealthy.
The Rowlands are the only people who have come face to face with this brutal killer and lived to tell about it. Investigators return to the hospital with a sketch artist who creates a composite drawing of the suspect based on the Roland's eyewitness description.
They described him as a white male with kind of shaggy-looking hair, thin, very authoritative voice. They described his voice as being of a person from the River Parish, from this area, as far as having a strong South Louisiana accent.
Investigators released the composite drawing of the assailant to the local news media. The wanted man is described as being a white male in his 20s or 30s, of average height with medium build and sandy blonde hair. Now, law enforcement from 3 Louisiana jurisdictions finally have their first lead in identifying a ruthless killer. An elderly Louisiana couple narrowly survives a brutal assault on their lives. Their attacker has been linked to 6 murders in 10 months. Now the suspected serial killer is on the loose with over $100,000 in cash. Armed with the survivors' statements, Louisiana investigators returned to Quantico, Virginia to present the newly linked cases to the FBI's profiling unit. The profilers agreed that the 6 homicides and the latest attack are most likely all connected. They suspect the killer lives or works in the area. He is nocturnal, and he may have recently purchased items he normally could not afford. The investigators now have a rough sketch of their suspect, but they need to move fast if they are to catch him. FBI Special Agent Dan Funk.
Now you had 2 live witnesses, subjects under pressure to believe that there's people out there who can identify him. So we believe that either he would change his appearance or he might even leave the area.
You've got several good...
The profilers recommend forming an official task force and asking the public to look out for anyone exhibiting any of the characteristics identified by the unit.
That's what we're going to recommend. We can do that.
The public appeal prompts thousands of phone calls to the task force hotline. A security guard from a local video poker casino provides an intriguing lead. He tells a detective that one of the regular customers at the casino looks a lot like the composite drawing he saw on TV. Detective Mike Toney of the Ascension Sheriff's Department.
He described the individual as a person who, before these attacks, would come in there and spend very little money. Poor dresser. Since the attacks, he would come in, he would spend a lot of money. He would then started sporting jewelry, riding a new motorcycle, basically changed his appearance.
But the security guard does not know the customer's name.
He gave a description of the person, what he looked like, as well as the vehicle that he was driven. And this vehicle was very unique. It was actually a truck, a large truck with a large boom on the back of it that was used to like lift motors and stuff and carry them around.
The detective reviews the security guard's recorded statement with the rest of the task force. His description of the customer's behavior is consistent with the profiler's analysis. Hearing the security guard's remarks about the customer's truck, a detective realizes he knows the man being described.
A pickup truck, it had a homemade hoist on the back of it.
The customer is an auto mechanic who once worked for a friend of his, the same man who had been beaten to death with a baseball bat in his home 6 months earlier. A murder linked to their suspect.
Yeah, there's a handful of them.
The mechanic's name is Daniel Blank. Blank is a former employee of an auto repair shop owned by the victim. He was one of 36 people police interviewed in connection with that crime. Although he had voluntarily given a statement to the police, detectives found nothing suspicious. A check of his record reveals one prior arrest for a minor theft in St. James Parish.
That's one side. You might want to go out and talk to him.
Investigators travel to Daniel Blank's last known residence to ask him some questions. woman answers the door. She says she is the mother of Sonia Radford, Daniel Blank's girlfriend.
She advised us that Daniel Blank and his girlfriend had just moved to Texas, that he wasn't there. Left my information with her. If she would speak to him after we leave, would she give the information to him that we needed to talk to him?
Very important that he gets up with us. Okay, we greatly appreciate that. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
10 minutes after Detective Tony returns to his office, he receives a telephone call.
Detective Tony.
It is Daniel Blank.
Hey, listen, can I put you on hold just a second?
He says he is calling from Onalaska, Texas.
And while I'm on the phone with him, I advised him that we were investigating several homicides of elderly people. And from those homicides, a large amount of money was stolen from these people. And he just started being a wealth of information. He started talking about how he was gambling, that he was winning a lot of money, that he had all the receipts for his gambling winnings. And during the conversation, he tells me that he will be back in Louisiana within a few days. So it was set up where he would come and meet with us when he came back into Louisiana.
Okay, Daniel. Well, please call me as soon as you get back here, okay?
All right. Thank you. All right.
But Daniel Blank has no intention of returning to Louisiana. So investigators will have to go and find him. In Louisiana, authorities identify a suspect in a series of brutal murders. But as the investigation heats up, the suspect moves to a small town in the neighboring state of Texas. Federal agents in Louisiana contact Special Agent Rick Locke at the FBI's Lufkin, Texas resident agency. Agent Locke often works undercover, so his identity must be protected.
Anytime that there's a case that would involve the violent death of a number of people and the possibility of a serial killer on the loose, that would be moved to a #1 priority.
Agent Locke asks Lieutenant Detective Mike Nettles from the Polk County Sheriff's Department to locate and surveil Daniel Blank. Nettles searches local utility records and finds Blank living with his girlfriend, Sonia Radford, in a trailer park in Onalaska.
Once we identified him, then we started working on trying to build a case to see, was he spending a lot of money? Did he have a lot of money? Because we knew that there was a lot of money taken from some of the murder scenes in South Louisiana.
Good look at him.
Special Agent Locke and Detective Nettles keep the suspect under a close watch.
When we were conducting the surveillance of Blank, we did notice that he had purchased a vehicle since he had arrived in Texas. He had purchased a trailer home. He then leased a automobile repair shop business and opened a business known as Daniel's Automotive.
Public records reveal that Blank has leased the garage in his girlfriend's name. After surveilling Blank for nearly 2 weeks, Agent Locke and Deputy Nettles meet with the Louisiana Task Force and a Texas U.S. attorney. The investigators brief the prosecutor on the results of a financial background check on Daniel Blank.
He was spending a large amount of money, which fit the behavioral profile. After doing a financial background on him, we learned that in this year where he was spending all this money, he had no means of income that was showing up on his state employment records.
During an earlier phone conversation with Blank, Detective Tony broached the subject of his income.
And that's when he started going into his gambling habits. All the money that I got, I won from gambling. So we had a person who was spending literally thousands of dollars at local gambling casinos. And then after doing the background and financial records through the casinos, we learned that he was actually spending more money than he was winning. So he was actually in the negative for his gambling records.
In addition to his massive gambling losses, Blank has purchased an SUV, a car, a new motorcycle, 2 trailer lots for $22,000, a $14,000 trailer, and a $4,000 above-ground swimming pool. Records reveal that most of the purchases were made with cash. The prosecutor agrees that the circumstantial evidence is impressive, but investigators have not produced any evidence that places Blank at any of the crime scenes or that connects him to a weapon. If investigators hope to make their case against Blank, they need hard, physical evidence. In Louisiana, technicians have recovered many latent fingerprints from the crime scenes. Analysts have matched most of the prints to the victims and their family members. Technicians compare the remaining unknown prints to a set of Daniel Blank's fingerprints, obtained during an arrest for an earlier minor violation. They determined that the prints do not match, but Blank's old record is incomplete. There are no palm prints in his file. And investigators have several palm prints from the crime scenes listed as unknown. The investigators devise a plan to obtain a set of palm prints from Daniel Blank. Through a records check, Detective Nettles and Agent Locke have learned that Blank does not have a valid driver's license. After weeks of surveillance, they have observed that Blank has a habit of running a particular stop sign near his business. The plan is for Nettles to perform a traffic stop the next time he does.
Driver's license registration? I don't have my license on me.
As predicted, Blank is unable to produce a valid driver's
My
license.
license expired.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and have to go down to the courthouse.
Is all this really necessary, you think?
Walk around the side of the car.
Yeah.
Nettles places him under arrest and takes him to the Polk County Sheriff's Office. During the booking process, officers take a full set of finger and palm prints from Blank. If the palm prints match the prints at any of the Louisiana crime scenes, investigators will have the evidence they need to obtain an indictment. Blank pays a $50 fine and is released. At the fingerprint lab, technicians compare the palm prints to latent prints collected at the crime scenes. In case after case, the results are negative. They do not match. All the prints collected at the crime scenes either belong to family members, victims, or remain unknown. So for now, suspected serial killer Daniel Blank will remain free. In Louisiana, 6 people are dead, the victims of a vicious killer. An intense investigation has revealed a prime suspect, but no hard evidence to tie him to the crimes. The suspect is volatile. Investigators have to get him off the streets. Now the only person who can provide the evidence they need is the suspect himself, FBI Special Agent Rick Locke.
It was decided that we must continue the case by planning for a detailed interview with Blank, as well as conducting a search of his properties. We were looking for any evidence which would definitely link him to the crimes in Louisiana.
Investigators served Daniel Blank with warrants to search his business and home. Detective Nettles asks Blank if he will come to the courthouse for a voluntary interview. He agrees. Blank is not arrested, but he is advised of his Miranda rights.
Do you mind if I record this conversation and
put it on video?
No, I have any problems with that?
No, go ahead.
Louisiana detectives Mike Toney and Todd Himmel conduct the critical interview.
A little bit about yourself.
It's a lot of pressure. You know that you either get a confession in solve these cases or you don't, and you have nothing.
Where are you from?
We had no physical evidence, and the circumstantial evidence wasn't that great to bring him to trial. We knew we needed a confession. We knew we needed him to tell us that he was responsible for killing these people. Without that, we had nothing. Our strategy was to first begin with background information with Daniel, asking questions that we knew the answer to. His family life, his education, his work background, that probably consumed an hour and a half. We then moved on to covering some of the homicides. The interview started to get interesting, I'd say probably within the third hour. At that point, we had challenged him on some of these homicides. We had asked him if he thought it odd that two of his former employers were deceased.
But I damn sure didn't kill him. I didn't kill him.
At that point, he became a little agitated. We were walking a fine line. We didn't want to upset him where he would walk out. He was not under arrest. He could have left at any moment.
So it wasn't me. I don't have nothing.
Blank continues to deny any involvement in the murders. It appears unlikely that he will confess to anything. Down the hall, investigators question Blank's girlfriend, Sonia Radford. She has also agreed to a voluntary interview.
Investigating several homicides.
It was entirely a consensual interview. She was free to leave. The interviewers approached her and asked if she would willingly visit with them in an interview room at the courthouse, and that was done. She did agree.
Sonia tells investigators she stayed out of Daniel's affairs, but she does admit he would often go out at night without telling her where he was going. Sonia also admits that a couple of times she dropped him off around the areas where the murders had been committed. Blank always told her he was going to repair someone's car. Sonia tells investigators she never wanted to believe Daniel was involved. A few doors down, Blank continues to deny any responsibility for the crimes.
I need you to go on record. I'd like you to take a polygraph, if that's okay with you.
He even agrees to take a polygraph exam.
Just answer yes or no.
I believe he agreed to take the polygraph because he needed to give the appearance that he was cooperative and that he wanted us to believe he was innocent.
The examiner asks Blank if he ever struck Mrs. Gilmer, the elderly woman found outside her home. Blank answers
no.
After 3 tests, the polygraph examiner reports that Blank is exhibiting deceptive behaviors. He is most likely not telling the truth. Blank is beginning to show signs of stress. His interrogators decide to further destabilize him by introducing an emotional subject, the recent death of his mother.
My father was no help.
I could tell that his relationship was close with his mother. From that point, I just discussed his upbringing. He came from a large family. I knew it wasn't easy for him because of the size of the family and both parents trying to provide food and support and housing for their children.
Daniel, did you love your mother?
Yeah.
If she were alive today and you were involved in these murders, do you think she'd want you to do the right thing?
Yeah.
Did you mean to kill Mrs. Gilmore?
No.
That was very important. That was the first admission that he had made that he was responsible for committing that crime.
Once Blank begins to confess, he doesn't stop.
really owed me
He
money.
ultimately admits to 6 homicides and 2 attempted murders. He tells Detective Himmel about his first murder, which occurred 8 months before the St. John's double homicide. Blank tells investigators he worked for the victim and claimed the man owed him money for a job he had done. He says he entered his boss's home and found him asleep on the couch. He tried to take his wallet, but the man woke up. Blank claims the man attacked him with a baseball bat. When he slipped and fell, Blank got a hold of the bat and started hitting back. He didn't stop beating the man until he was dead. Blank said he took $800 or $900 from the man's pockets.
I lost.
He knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew the difference between right and wrong. And I believe after that first homicide, it just became easier and easier every time it occurred again.
In his confession, Blank consistently claims he acted in self-defense.
I shot them.
He insists that all 6 murder victims attacked him first.
So he was trying to kill you?
They were trying to kill me.
Blank's interpretation may be self-serving, but his memory of the crime scenes is nearly photographic.
The recollection was amazing. The amount of detail he was able to remember, being able to draw diagrams of the homes, draw diagrams of weapons that he used. His attention to detail was amazing.
The confession continues for 13 hours.
By the time he got to the end, he was very comfortable, drinking his soft drink, smoking a cigarette, very comfortable, nonchalantly discussing these crimes in detail.
Authorities in Texas arrest Daniel Blank on murder charges and then extradite him to Louisiana to face trial. Daniel Blank is convicted of 5 homicides and receives 3 life terms and 2 death sentences. He is currently on death row at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The state of Louisiana decides not to pursue charges for the 6th homicide and attempted murders, confident that Daniel Blank will never leave this place alive. An attempted cop killing. A drug house shootout. And a violent bank robbery. A gang of dangerous criminals threatens an entire community. The FBI and an undercover ex-cop put their lives on the line to track down the gunman.
In the late 1990s, one criminal terrorized an entire community. Witnesses refused to speak out. They knew the consequences could be deadly. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. As the violence escalated, the FBI worked with local law enforcement to launch a complex sting operation. Their mission? To lure this vicious fugitive out of hiding with the promise of a big score, and to get him off the streets for good.
Camden, New Jersey, located just across the river from Philadelphia. It is one of the poorest, most crime-ridden cities in America. On February 12, 1997, Officer Stephen Leone patrols the street. It's 4:20 a.m. Officer Leone stops to catch up on some paperwork.
massive amount of gunfire coming from the east side of Camden. Gunfire in excess of 50 rounds. Well, it's not unusual to hear gunfire in Camden, so it's a commonplace thing. And I try to locate a general area before I put out a call for an assistance, so we didn't have cops running all over the place.
Officer Leone drives toward the area of the gunshots. The streets are deserted until a suspicious car appears. Officer Leone pulls in behind the car.
Then it appeared that the vehicle saw that I was a patrol vehicle, and they made a left-hand turn. I went down on the seat. And then I came up and I could taste my own blood.
Officer Leone has been hit in the face. Somehow he pulls himself out of his vehicle.
I bailed out of the car to take up a tactical position in the rear of my vehicle in case my assailants attempted to come back or they were still in the area. I knew I was hit. I knew I was hit with a bullet in the face and the head, and I didn't know how serious I was hurt. I radioed an officer down, officer shot, shots fired.
Officer down, officer needs assistance immediately. My location. Shots fired.
Within minutes, Camden police and rescue units respond to the scene.
Did you get a description of the vehicle?
Despite his wounds, Officer Leone gives them a description of the shooter's car. Paramedics try to stabilize him for transport to a nearby hospital. The officer has bullet fragments embedded in his face.
I took 3 in the scalp, 1 in my left eye socket, 1 in my right eye socket, and a little piece of my nose. I was lucky I didn't lose my vision.
Paramedics rush Officer Leone to the hospital, while investigators scour the scene looking for evidence. Camden County Prosecutor Lee Solomon.
The idea that somebody would be so brazen, so arrogant, to fire a weapon at a police officer is something that we mobilize against very quickly.
Investigators search the area looking for the shooter's vehicle. Police are called to a house not far from the crime scene. A neighbor heard gunshots earlier that evening.
We got a call for shots being fired out here. So
They notice the front door is riddled with bullet holes.
I hear something banging at my door.
According to the man, earlier that night, someone tried to break down his front door.
Coming in to get me.
The resident grabbed his gun. The intruders heard him moving in the house and opened fire. The resident returned fire, forcing the attackers to retreat. Police believe the attack was what they refer to as a ninja-style robbery, where masked gunmen invade a house to steal drugs or money. Over 50 rounds are fired into the house.
One of the bullets passed through a wall, a refrigerator, the rear wall of the residence, and the projectile was never found. Another went through a ceiling, floor ceiling, through the roof. Again, the projectile was never found. These were high-powered weapons, and so there was cause for concern.
Later that morning, a few blocks away, police discover an abandoned vehicle.
174.
The car matches Officer Leone's description of the vehicle used in the shootout.
There was broken glass, there was expended shells from the AR-15 and a .45 caliber pistol found in the car. And there was blood in the vehicle.
It was apparent to investigators that one of the perpetrators had been wounded. The officer runs the license plate. The car belongs to a woman who lives in the neighborhood. The K-9 unit picks up the scent from the car and tracks it to the same address listed on the vehicle registration.
And it was found 2 or 3 blocks from where I was, the location of my shooting was.
A SWAT team prepares to storm the house in case the shooters are still inside.
And there was an elementary school which they closed for the day because they thought there'd be a gun battle with these individuals that were heavily armed.
Inside the house, there is no sign of the gunman. Instead, the SWAT team finds a woman who police discover is the owner of the vehicle.
Who do you think you are?
You're not allowed to be in my house.
Shut up!
They learn that she is the girlfriend of Charlie Rodriguez, one of Camden's most violent criminals. Between 1984 and 1989, Charlie had been arrested for weapons and drug charges as well as making terrorist threats.
Crazy Charlie was known as a guy who would do anything. No violent act was beyond him. Crazy Charlie was the kind of guy that would shoot at a cop, would shoot at an old person, would shoot at a young person, would shoot indiscriminately.
SWAT finds no sign of the gunman. Police search the premises and question the girlfriend.
What's your
What
name?
are you doing in my house?
What's your name?
She tells them she was at work at the time of the shooting and that she had reported her car stolen. Investigators search the house and find drops of blood. They call for forensics to collect the blood as
Send me an
evidence.
evidence tech to collect some evidence, please. Have some blood on the sink.
Okay, we're doing a camera.
Investigators canvass the area, questioning the girlfriend's neighbors. They find someone who remembers seeing a few men leaving the girlfriend's house very early that morning. After looking through a photo lineup, he identifies one of the men. According to police records, the suspect is Jose Baez, on parole for manslaughter and weapons violations. Police track Baez to an apartment in Deptford, New Jersey. The dangerous ex-con is investigators' only link to a would-be cop killer. A violent rampage in Camden, New Jersey results in the shooting of a police officer. Evidence leads investigators to Jose Baez, an ex-con they believe was involved in the shooting. Baez is quickly taken into custody.
Turn around.
Investigators notice the suspect has a wound on one of his hands.
You all by yourself?
He recently sustained some type of bullet wound to his hand that he tried to sew up using thread himself.
Police arrest Baez for parole violations and take a sample of his blood for DNA testing. In the lab, Baez's blood is compared to evidence gathered in the Leone shooting.
And they were able to match the blood from him to the blood found on the scene, in the vehicle and at the house.
Investigators now have proof that Baez was in the car at the time Officer Leone was shot. But they don't have evidence to suggest that he actually pulled the trigger. At first, Baez refuses to talk to authorities. But after 2 weeks in custody, he asks to meet with the investigators.
Jose, you already been read your rights, so I have to go over that with you. I'm an investigator with Camden County, and I'm trying to figure out information about the shooting.
Baez finally agrees to talk, but only if police take steps to protect his family. He says that Charlie Rodriguez, Crazy Charlie, was involved in the ninja robbery as well as the Leone shooting.
I believe that Baez ultimately cooperated because Charlie had threatened his family. And out of fear that something might happen, he had cooperated.
The Camden County Prosecutor's Office obtains a warrant on Charlie Rodriguez for the attempted murder of a police officer. They also offer a $1,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. The state of New Jersey places Charlie Rodriguez on the top 10 list of wanted fugitives.
There was a manhunt every day. Every Camden cop and every cop in Camden County was looking for Charlie Rodriguez.
Although Charlie is well known throughout Camden, residents are too afraid to talk to police.
Fear is a powerful weapon for somebody like Charlie Rodriguez.
In the month following Officer Leone's shooting, police question their informants. All they learn is that Charlie is hiding somewhere across the river in Philadelphia. Since Charlie is believed to have fled to another state, local police turn to the FBI for help. FBI agent John Tam obtains a federal warrant and leads a multi-state hunt for Charlie Rodriguez.
I start by getting good photographs, reviewing his prior criminal records, and I also review prison records to see who their cellmates were, who visited them while they were in prison, and an attempt to identify people they might be in contact with.
FBI agents cast a wide net. But like local police, the FBI find that people are too terrified to talk.
Charlie Rodriguez's reputation was of a stone-cold killer. People were very cautious about talking about him.
Agents set up surveillance on Charlie's girlfriend, hoping she will lead them to Charlie.
Rodriguez had enough self-discipline to stay away from her and keep her away from him, so that wasn't helping us either.
Over the next few months, agents continue to question their informants and learn that Charlie is hiding in a tough Philadelphia slum known as the Badlands.
A very tough neighborhood, a lot of drug activity, difficult to police. People live there intimidated by the criminals. It's a hard place to find a fugitive because you get very little cooperation.
FBI SWAT teams raid buildings in the Badlands where Charlie is believed to be hiding.
We get the fugitive task force out over in Philadelphia, 5 in the morning, we'd hit the place, we'd catch somebody, they would be a criminal, but it wouldn't be Charlie Rodriguez. You know, we'd end up arresting somebody who was wanted for something else. Let's go.
At the same time, on the crime-ridden streets of Camden, the FBI is running an unrelated drug investigation. And Special Agent Jim Walsh gets an unexpected tip.
We obtained information that Charlie Rodriguez and his brother Joseph and some other individuals were planning to commit a bank robbery or a robbery of an armored car in the near future.
Joseph Rodriguez, he had previously been convicted of murder in an infamous drug shooting that occurred in the early 90s. Where 2 teenagers were killed on a drug corner in South Camden.
According to an informant, Charlie and Joey Rodriguez are targeting one bank in particular in the nearby town of Woodland, New Jersey. Agents set up surveillance teams. If the Rodriguez brothers hit the bank, local police are nearby ready to make the arrest. But weeks pass with no sign of the robbers.
Due to manpower needs, we couldn't sustain the surveillances. And after about a month and a half, we had to discontinue them.
On July 19, 1997, a few weeks after the FBI ends surveillance, several heavily armed men hit the Woodland Bank. One teller is too frightened to move. Two of the robbers forced the teller to empty the cash drawers. The remaining robber guards the lobby and calls out how much time has passed. One robber tries to force the supervisor to open the vault. She tells him she can't. The vault is on a timer. He tells her if she doesn't open the vault, he will kill her. In New Jersey, the shooting of a Camden police officer launches an FBI manhunt for a violent ex-con named Charlie Rodriguez. 5 months later, 3 men carrying semi-automatic weapons burst into a bank in Woodland, New Jersey. bank supervisor can't open the vault. It's on a timer. One of the robbers threatens to kill her. The robbers are out of time. They have to leave before police arrive. The bank supervisor escapes with her life. FBI agents John Tam and Jim Walsh investigate the robbery. The customers and the bank employees are terrified. Special Agent Jim Walsh.
All the individuals were upset. One woman had to be taken to the hospital. She was so scared she suffered a minor heart attack.
Can you describe any one of them at all?
Because the violent nature of the bank robbery. I knew immediately that it was Charlie Rodriguez and his brother.
Agents and police watch the bridges to Pennsylvania and the New Jersey Turnpike for the Rodriguez brothers. They find no sign of them. At the FBI office in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Agents Walsh and Tam study surveillance photos and footage from the bank's security cameras, looking for clues. Special Agent John Tam.
We got a good look at the weapons they were carrying, which were semi-automatic rifles, what is known as an AR-15. It's a very dangerous weapon because standard law enforcement body armor will not stop that round.
Although agents feel confident the robbers are Charlie and Joey Rodriguez, they cannot positively ID them from the surveillance.
You could not identify them in any way. They were fully clothed. They had gloves on, masks, hats.
Joey Rodriguez continues to live openly in Camden. The FBI doesn't have enough evidence to arrest him. Agents watch Joey, hoping he will lead them to Charlie.
He realized that he was the connection, if there was any, to his brother, and they stayed away from each other.
Over the next 7 months, the Camden, New Jersey area is plagued by a string of bank robberies. The Rodriguez brothers are possible suspects, but police have no hard evidence to link them to the crimes. Moorestown, New Jersey, a bedroom community north of Camden. May 23rd, 1998. More than a year after Officer Leone is shot, 3 men arrive at a Moorestown bank just before 8:30 a.m. They all carry assault rifles or machine pistols. The bank's doors are still locked. The robbers have lost precious time. They realize a bank employee has probably triggered the silent alarm. 2 of the robbers force tellers to empty the cash drawers. A 3rd gunman guards the lobby and calls out how much time has gone by. The robbers are tense. They decide the tellers are moving too slowly. The robbers frighten a late-arriving teller. The getaway car won't start. The robbers panic. They threaten the teller, demanding her car keys. They escape in her car. Based on the robbers' MO, Agents Tam and Walsh decide that it was probably the Rodriguez brothers.
Same builds.
Surveillance photos from the robbery provide even more clues. The weapons, masks, and even some of the clothing look identical to those used in the Woodland Bank robbery.
The pictures prove that they were, in fact, similar type clothing worn.
But the two agents lack enough evidence to charge either Rodriguez brother with bank robbery. The gang's MO seems to be evolving. With each robbery, they are becoming more dangerous.
The violence of this group was escalating. Eventually, somebody was going to be killed. Either a bank employee, a customer, or a police officer responding to a report of a bank robbery. There's no question somebody was going to be killed.
Agents Tam and Walsh meet with the local law enforcement agencies in the cities and towns in the Camden, New Jersey area, advising them of the gang's MO. In late July 1998, Agent Tam gets an intriguing lead from Lieutenant Roy Whitmore at the Merchantville, New Jersey Police Department.
I know an individual who may be able to help us. I know a gentleman.
He said, I have an individual who grew up with Rodriguez and who knows his brother fairly well, who might be willing to locate Crazy Charlie Rodriguez.
A year and a half into the investigation, the FBI has the potential to develop an informant with access to information about Charlie Rodriguez.
It was the biggest break possible because we had been looking essentially in the blind for somebody to cooperate with us and give Charlie Rodriguez up. Lieutenant Whitmore arranged for me to meet this person and formulate a way to draw Charlie Rodriguez out from wherever he was hiding in Philadelphia.
The informant is a former police officer who was forced to resign due to a minor weapons infraction.
Well, I found him to be intelligent, surprisingly articulate, considering that he was from a very tough urban environment. And I felt him to be honest and reliable.
The ex-cop says he wants to stop Charlie before anyone else, especially a police officer, is shot or killed.
We talked about his relationship with Joseph Rodriguez.
The agents theorize that Joseph is somehow in contact with his brother so they can plan robberies.
I suggested maybe he could find out something from Joseph as to if he ever saw his brother, was in contact with him, how he contacted him, and the frequency of the contact, because maybe we could take advantage of that to locate Charlie Rodriguez.
Agents Tam and Walsh develop a plan to use their informant to lure Charlie out of hiding. They know that the ex-cop used to sell guns.
He had worked for a firearms dealer, and that was known on the street in South Camden.
But now the ex-cop is legally barred from owning or selling firearms. The agents decide to use the informant's background to help establish his cover.
He would go to Joseph Rodriguez and ask him if he was interested in buying a handgun. We felt this would be a good introduction that he wanted to now enter the criminal element.
I knew that that would interest Charlie Rodriguez because of his violent criminal nature. Criminals are always interested in acquiring new weapons. They can get rid of whatever weapon they've used before and move on to another one not connected with their prior crimes.
The ex-cop agrees to approach Joey at a family gathering a few days later. At first, Joey is wary.
Joseph knew that he had been a police officer and that he had been let go from the department, and he used this as an introduction. I was wrongly fired, they screwed me over, and heck with law enforcement.
Let's go join the party.
A few days later, Joey contacts the ex-cop and arranges a meeting.
He said, yeah, I talked to Charlie about it, and Charlie's interested in buying the handgun.
Not long at all. I'll call you.
So we knew we were making progress, and we knew that Charlie Rodriguez was nearby.
Agent Tam tells the undercover ex-cop that they need him to meet Charlie face to face.
Joseph Rodriguez would be very happy to buy the gun and then give it to Charlie Rodriguez, but that wouldn't help us. So I emphasized to him at that point that he was going to have to hand deliver the weapon to Charlie Rodriguez, where we could arrest him.
The FBI has no intention of actually delivering a working gun to either Rodriguez brother. The ex-cop goes to Joey's apartment to try to set up the sale.
The source was taking tremendous risks. He would have been killed immediately, in my opinion, if Charlie or Joey Rodriguez found out that he was cooperating with us.
Camden, New Jersey, 1998. An ex-cop embarks on a dangerous undercover operation for the FBI. Charlie Rodriguez, also known as Crazy Charlie, is suspected of shooting a police officer and robbing banks. The ex-cop attempts to infiltrate Charlie's crew by offering to sell him guns. The undercover informant meets with Charlie's brother. Joey Rodriguez, an ex-con who has served time for manslaughter, checks to see if he is wired.
He did not wear a recording device or anything because we were afraid if that was found, he would be immediately killed.
Slowly but surely, through a series of meetings, the ex-cop wins Joey's trust. The undercover informant tells FBI agents John Tam and Jim Walsh that Joey even asked him for advice on an upcoming robbery.
I said, that's a good idea. Tell them that you're interested in participating. And I thought maybe that would give us more information about where they were, you know, where they might be meeting, and we could interrupt them before they really got the whole thing going.
The ex-cop adds that Charlie Rodriguez is looking for a big score this time, $100,000 or more.
I said, well, then we're going to suggest a crime for them to commit. If they want to rob somebody, we're going to give them a target to rob.
Agents Walsh and Tam plan a sting operation to lure Charlie Rodriguez into the open without endangering the public.
The key thing is believability. The criminal has to believe the scenario. There's going to have to be money, there has to be opportunity, there has to be a plausibility that the crime can be committed. I suggested we would have them rob an armored car servicing an automatic teller machine on the New Jersey Turnpike, because this would give us an environment where we could seal off a rest stop where the ATM was located and catch them there.
Agents Tam and Walsh pick a location they feel will work well.
And we selected a rest stop located in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. The rest stop was located below the grade of the surrounding community. So if there was any gunfire or anything like that, the rounds would tend to be shot into a hill as opposed to flying all over the place.
The big thing for us was we felt that it was in a place that we could secure and control.
The undercover man pitches the robbery proposal to Joey, who carefully evaluates his every word.
He was able to go back to Joseph Rodriguez and say, I know this armored car driver who's willing to cooperate with us. And the armored car driver had significant sports betting debt, gambling debt, and that he wanted to be cut in on the proceeds of the robbery.
The undercover ex-cop says the armored car driver will be their inside man and hand over more than $200,000.
Let me just come to them. So?
2 days later, Joey gets back to the ex-cop with an answer.
Joseph Rodriguez said, Charlie thinks it's a great idea. Let's go ahead with a plan and do this.
Joey says he wants to check out the rest area with a third person. The ex-cop is concerned by the sudden change in plans.
Joey says, don't worry about him. He's okay. You can trust him.
The newcomer's name is Jose Soto.
Soto had an extensive and violent criminal record. He'd also been convicted of second-degree murder and was out on parole. And they drove to the rest stop and basically checked it out to see if they would be able to pull off this robbery.
The rest area has a back service road. It will allow them to enter and leave the rest stop without ever going onto the turnpike.
They knew they could get away and probably not be seen by anybody. The robbers liked everything about the location. And the FBI liked everything about the location because it was going to allow us to isolate them in an area where they could not escape and where the public generally would be protected from any sort of firearms activity, any sort of gunshots or anything that might occur.
Joey drives around the rest stop, tracing the route the armored car will take as it approaches the ATM.
Joseph Rodriguez was familiar with the location and comfortable with it. So rather than having the cooperator have to sell it to Charlie Rodriguez, Joseph Rodriguez sold it to him for us.
The undercover informant tells the FBI that Charlie Rodriguez, the target of the sting, has approved the robbery for August 27th. With the plan now in motion, the FBI approaches the agency responsible for the turnpike and the rest area, the New Jersey State Police. Agent Tam briefs Lieutenant Colonel Robert Dunlop. Dunlop's troopers will shut down the entire area and the turnpike to protect the public.
We always have the news helicopters up in the air. Radio stations would have broadcasted that there was a backup on the turnpike. To make this thing work, we had to coordinate this where we would shut this rest area down just moments before our suspects arrived, so it wouldn't spook anyone.
SWAT teams will be positioned at the turnpike entrances and inside buildings in the rest area. 3 days before the sting, Tam and Walsh meet with FBI and police SWAT leaders to go over the plan to capture the Rodriguez brothers and Soto.
We knew they were going to be heavily armed, and we knew that, at least in the case of Charles Rodriguez, they had a propensity to shoot people when confronted.
The plan is to evacuate the rest area minutes before the Rodriguez gang arrives. The FBI's informant will park behind the rest area, but then walk to the front of the building to get out of the line of fire.
Yeah, we're just talking about right now what we're going to be doing.
The SWAT team will be hidden inside a delivery truck. For backup, snipers will be positioned on a rooftop.
A tow truck would come down the access road driven by an FBI agent, and he was planning on pinning the car with the Rodriguez brothers in it at that location where they could not pull the car out.
Once the gang is trapped, the SWAT team will make the arrest.
The plan was a good one in the sense that if they had a lick of sense, they would surrender.
August 27th, 1998. Agents and state police assemble at the rest area.
Check, roger that.
The trap is set.
5 in position. Check.
Crazy Charlie is considered a very dangerous and unpredictable criminal. I think everyone that was involved in this operation knew that there was a great possibility that he wouldn't go down easy. As much as we planned, there was always the possibility that he would want to shoot it out.
Camden, New Jersey. Charlie Rodriguez is suspected of wounding a police officer and robbing banks. August 27th, 1998. FBI agents John Tam and Jim Walsh have devised a complex sting operation to trap the dangerous fugitive and his crew. Nearly 100 agents and law enforcement officers are in position at a New Jersey rest stop. But Charlie and his crew fail to show.
We're wondering where we had gone wrong. Had they found out something about it? Do they now suspect the source?
The agents are concerned about their informant, an ex-cop who helped them infiltrate the Rodriguez crew. If Charlie Rodriguez knows he's been set up, he could kill the FBI informant.
Early that morning, I get a call from the cooperator. He tells me that the Rodriguez brothers, who were to meet him at his apartment in Merchantville, New Jersey, had not arrived.
We instructed the source to reach out for Joey Rodriguez and find out why they hadn't showed up.
Despite the danger, the FBI's undercover man agrees to talk to Joey.
Where were you yesterday?
Joey says that the day before, sheriffs came looking for one of the crew, Jose Soto.
We were this close.
The undercover man informs the FBI about the problem.
His county sheriff's department had a warrant for Jose Soto for failure to pay child support. So that had kind of spooked them, and they decided not to go forward with it.
Agent Walsh asks deputies to tell Soto that all they want from him is a promise to pay his child support.
That's right.
The Rodriguez brothers and Soto are relieved. The next day, Joey meets with the ex-cop near the Ben Franklin Bridge to tell him Charlie has chosen a new date for the robbery, September 1st. The FBI sting operation is back on. According to their insider, Charlie and the crew are now supposed to arrive at his apartment early in the morning of the robbery. All of them will drive to the rest stop together.
There was some consideration to arresting him at the apartment. However, the SWAT team leaders felt that it was not as safe an environment as the rest stop because there were other people living in the apartments above and on either side.
The apartment complex was next to a playground and an elementary school. The whole environment would be awful for a violent arrest. So we wanted to get him out of there.
It was agreed upon that we would go with the original plan and it would take place at the rest stop.
The morning of the robbery, the FBI's undercover man waits at his apartment for the crew to arrive.
Up to this point, Charlie Rodriguez had not showed up. The source had not yet seen or met Charlie Rodriguez during all this.
He finally gets to meet with Charlie face to face.
Charlie, it's good to finally see you. Can I get something to eat? What do you want? Donuts. Donuts.
The source has an opportunity to go outside to get orange juice and donuts to bring back to them.
He takes the opportunity to call Agent Tam. The robbery is going forward as planned.
Yeah, they're in the apartment. It's definitely a go.
At the apartment, the crew puts on bulletproof vests and checks their weapons. The FBI's inside man puts on a distinctive baseball cap.
We had him wearing a baseball cap that everybody would recognize so that they would know that he was the cooperator.
The robbers leave for the rest area in 2 stolen cars. FBI surveillance keeps agents informed of the robbers' location so they can evacuate the rest area before they arrive.
We shut down both the rest area and the turnpike within a 10 to 15 minute time period.
The undercover man parks one of the stolen cars in a nearby neighborhood to use as a getaway car after the robbery. He then drives the Rodriguez brothers and Soto down the back road toward the rest area. Already there, FBI agents prepare for the sting.
I knew this was going to be a very dangerous operation. The source was going to be put in danger, plus a lot of agents and law enforcement personnel.
My concern was, do we not have anybody seriously injured or killed during this operation? We're just trying to arrest these people with the least amount of injury to anyone.
The FBI SWAT team waits inside a delivery truck.
We had FBI snipers on the rooftop of the rest stop in the event they got out of the car and tried to run away or fire at agents or anyone.
Nearly 100 law enforcement officers are hidden in and around the rest area.
Doesn't matter how many of these operations you've been on, there's always an adrenaline rush just prior to. What's going through my mind is that I hope we don't have gunfire. I hope no one's injured. I hope that we can take these people down without any serious problems.
The FBI's informant drives the crew along a back road into the rest area.
And the source parked exactly where he was told to park.
And our plan was to disable their vehicle by ramming it with a tow truck, which would probably knock the firearms out of their hands, and then they would be confronted by the SWAT team.
The FBI agent in the tow truck waits for the go-ahead signal, the undercover man leaving his car.
The main concern of this whole plan was getting the source out of the car, the safety of the source. And once he got out of the car, I felt everything would be fine.
But before the FBI source can get out of the car, Charlie senses that something is wrong. The informant's cover is in jeopardy of being blown. A wrong move now could cost him his life.
You want to ride in the trunk or you want to drive the car?
At a rest area in New Jersey, the FBI launches a sting operation to catch a gang of dangerous bank robbers. Gang leader Charlie Rodriguez senses a trap. He forces the driver of the car, an FBI cooperator, back into the car, preventing an FBI SWAT team from moving in. The undercover man is trapped. Agent Tam makes a difficult decision.
So I tell the SWAT team to go ahead and execute their secondary plan, which was the takedown. And that also involved the tow truck ramming the car.
The tow truck drives around to pin the robber's car.
As the tow truck approached, Charlie told the source, "Something's wrong here. This is a setup. Let's get out of here."
Needing to protect his identity, the FBI's undercover man speeds away from the SWAT team. One of the gunmen tries to shoot at the agents. The SWAT members open fire.
When the gunfire erupted, I think all of us in the back of our minds were saying, I hope we don't end up hitting our confidential source.
The tow truck slams into the rear end of the getaway car.
When it was finally over and we had these people safely in custody, I think everyone felt a tremendous amount of relief and satisfaction that it went down well.
Incredibly, the undercover man has not been wounded. FBI agents recover a huge arsenal of weapons from the Rodriguez brothers in Soto.
The amount of weapons and the amount of ammunition that was recovered from inside this car was something that I have never seen or heard of before. It's more firepower than would be necessary to rob 1,000 banks.
The weapons included an AR-15 converted to automatic, a machine pistol with a silencer, and an AK-47 Chinese clone also converted to automatic. Each of the gunmen also carried sidearms with the serial numbers drilled out, and dozens of fully loaded magazines. Altogether, they had well over 1,000 rounds of ammunition.
Charlie Rodriguez made a remark that if he had known what was going to happen, he would have brought his hand grenades. For them to actually have been arrested without anyone getting hurt with the kind of ammunition and the kind of weapons that they had in their person was an incredible feat.
The Rodriguez brothers were violent criminals. I mean, they'd killed before, they would kill again. And the only solution to that is to lock them up forever, which was the ultimately what happened here.
On March 30th, 2000, Jose Soto was sentenced in federal court to 37 years for the attempted armored car robbery and weapons violations. Charlie and Joey Rodriguez are sentenced to life without parole for 2 bank robberies, the attempted robbery of an armored car, and weapons violations.